Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Torres, accompanied by the one and only co-host, the only co-host in the world called Christina Nicolaou. Hey, Christina, how are you?
Hi, Daniel. I'm doing very well. I'm the only co-host in the world. I bet Efren likes to hear that.
Well, I've not done the research if there's another podcast co-host called Christina Nicolaou. Definitely not in the FMCG world.
Yeah, I guess so.
And if you want to go more specific, not doing today a podcast episode about retail media, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm the only one doing that.
Yeah. So today we're going to speak about retail media. It's actually the favorite topic of our friends, the CPG guys. So I want to give a shout out to it's our sister podcast in the US, who've actually been talking about retail media for a long time. We started later, but we started and never stopped. And today I'm very excited because we're going to be talking about retail media, but more in the beauty space. So that's a space where I think Christina, you'll know better than me, online is way ahead of other categories in FMCG.
From a consumer point of view, I can tell you for sure I over-index.
Yeah, and I think recently at Candid Commerce, our own event, we also had someone from a big beauty company talking about how advanced they are. So I think that kind of confirmed that as well. So we have no other than the head of retail media at Superdrug. It's Paul Stafford. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Hi, Daniel. How are you? Nice to see you.
Not bad. Good to have you here. Where are you sitting today?
I'm in Superdrug headquarters in Croydon in South London.
Croydon. So you must have, Christina, you said that you just went to Gatwick. You must have seen Croydon. No, don't you stop there on the train?
I was on the Gatwick Express, so I don't think that I ever stopped. But it was a very lovely week, I might say, in London with beautiful weather, which I was very happy to see.
And a rarity.
The Gatwick train does go through Croydon, right? Or am I getting the names wrong?
Yeah. It's sometimes it stops at Croydon as well. Other times it kind of whizzes through. But yeah, and our office is right beside it, basically 5 minutes from there.
Well, that's handy.
Very.
So good, Paul, and welcome to the podcast. Could you tell us a little bit about your career background? I know that you have had quite a few different positions in FMCG and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, I started my life out really in agency world, working for kind of like above the line agencies at a place called JWT, John Walter Thompson, which is no longer around. I think it's part of Wunderman Thompson now, but like the name JWT is gone. So working on creative campaigns and all that sort of good stuff. And then from there, I started to get really kind of interested in digital. I remember running the first digital campaigns for clients like Vodafone, Tourism Ireland, and that sort of stuff, 2009, 2010. Sort of thing. From then I ended up in telco. So, having a Vodafone, I ended up working for Virgin Media. And you might have guessed by my accent that I'm Irish, and here I am in the UK. So I was working for Virgin Media in Ireland and then kind of got moved over to the UK office. So kind of working everything across brand, digital at Virgin Media, which is super exciting. Great big brand here in the UK, right? Then from there, I switched over into FMCG. So was at PepsiCo for about 5 years. Had a couple of roles there, working at kind of like the beverages team, so everything from Pepsi Max, Gatorade, 7-Up and so on. And then had an amazing opportunity to build up a in-house creative and media team there as well. So like in-housing, obviously huge, especially within FMCG as well, right? So we built out a studio there called Sips and Bites, super successful as well. So in-house, everything. We actually started off just as digital content, but we quickly realized that the scale and production level that PepsiCo make any content, it could actually be used across TVC. So we were starting to do everything from TV production right down to out of home PR. So that blew up as well. And then working alongside O&D to bring the digital elements of a campaign to life as well. So that was great. And then from there, I've ended up in retail beauty. So it's like really zigzag, right? So go from from agency to telco to FMCG, in-house creative studio, in-house media studio, and now at Superdrug. I really wanted to kind of like cut my teeth in e-commerce. And Superdrug, I'm not sure how familiar you are, Christine, with Superdrug in the UK. Dan, you probably know it really well.
Taylor, would it be good if you could tell us a little bit about the company, like for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'll give you a bit of that now in a second. But basically, I just wanted to cut my teeth in e-commerce. That was the sort of the missing piece, my digital kind of strand. I'd done all the brand digital, done all the creative digital. I wanted to get more into the kind of the guts and bones of, a retailer at scale in the UK. So I did. My first role there was around sort of looking after digital marketing and the website, everything to do with that side of things. But then that expanded into retail media. And then more recently, as retail media has exploded, which we'll obviously talk about more, I've just been focused on building out the retail media in-house function. So sort of like my PepsiCo in-house media experience has been translated into this here as well. So that's sort of like a very top line view on my career. And then I'll give you some top line on Superdrug as well. Superdrug, we had its 60th birthday last year. So kind of like a
Happy birthday, Superdrug.
Thanks very much. We're a bright pink logo. I'm sure you've seen it, right? It's this amazing kind of like fun brand, very youthful brand, hugely well established here in the UK. We have approximately 800 stores as well in the UK. So everything from kind of your high street to your big shopping malls like Westfield and so on as well. It's a brand that's gone from strength to strength. We obviously operate a successful online business as well. So super profitable both areas. And then our parent company is A.S. Watson, which in turn is the world's largest health and beauty organization as well. So it's a super interesting business, super fun place to work, and just a great dynamic organization.
Yeah, I have to say, like, every time, especially when you've gone to FMCG and then to retail, you must feel like a real outsider every time, no?
Yeah, no, that's. I think that's why people have hired me before, because I think what I've found is that any of my hiring managers take me in is always looking for someone who are outside in perspective, someone that can kind of bring ideas from a different industry. And I guess I've always been taken in as sort of like someone that's done something that so for example, at Virgin Media, I sort of kind of made my name for social media as that was starting to ramp up in 2011, 12, 13, right? And then PepsiCo were going through digital transformation, really wanted to kind of establish their footprint on that. And then again, with the e-commerce point of view from Superdrug, I think they wanted someone with that FMCG kind of big brand experience. So I've always been brought to kind of use my previous experience and outside in sort of view to help sort of accelerate the business that way.
Yeah, it makes sense that in retail to run marketing, they would bring someone with like from the FMCG experience, just because like it's just a stronger school of marketing. But it must have been interesting for you to also have that last contact with the consumer, really, to be where they buy, no?
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, that was like I said, that was a missing piece for me. So like at PepsiCo, you're always doing these big big campaigns, mass reach. We all got like the how brands grow, Byron Sharp playbook just completely drilled into you, right? So, but what was always missing, and I suppose at PepsiCo as well, you operate under like data-driven digital as a global mantra, but the data bit is always missing, right? Because, PepsiCo don't have a huge number of stores. They don't have lots of transactional data, big CRM programs, loyalty and so on. Versus you come to Superdrug, 20 million health and beauty cards, subscriptions, all the data going through tills every day. So we actually have that kind of great balance as well. So it's been super interesting kind of like seeing it from both sides as well. Definitely.
And what does your role look like right now? So what is kind of like the things that you occupy yourself with the day to day, but also looking in the year ahead? What is it that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, good question. So basically, we have established a retail media network, like many health and beauty and grocers here in the UK as well. Our retail media network is called Optimo. And Optimo is actually the global name for the retail media network within A.S. Watson. All right. So we have Optimo in the Netherlands, Optimo in France, and Optimo across Asia. So we're one of the latest nations to launch. We've been planning it for about 3 years, but live now about 18 months. So my role really is to establish and kind of build the functionality of a retail media network. And in the three normal areas really. So kind of like build an online presence, build an offline presence through kind of like commodifying our data and our audiences as well through social media, trade desk and so on. But also then to bring in-store as well. We have a huge footprint in stores. So like I mentioned, we have 800 stores as well. So I work across those three areas and trying to kind of enhance their proposition, online, offline and in-store. But also as well, making sure that the data that we have in terms of like, building out audiences, having measurement and so on is a real USP that kind of adds value. So when a P&G, when a L'Oreal comes to brief us, that they know that they can, get the best value for their investment and so on.
And how have these first 18 months been? How's the journey been so far?
Yeah.
I'm sure like you've worked 8 hours a day. It's been relaxed, right?
Yeah. When I remember getting it live, I put a deadline in my mind that I wanted to be like 2 weeks before Black Friday I was 2023 now, right?
Yeah.
And then, you have your best will and ambition. You've got a Gantt chart. You have a project plan. You think you're also going to make your timings. But of course, the closer you get, you're like, no, this is not going to happen. So yeah, I remember working sort of like 7 days a week. I probably did that like for 2 or 3, but maybe 2 months max. And then kind of like long days. But then I also remember kind of like running our first Criteo campaign myself, right? As well, kind of like, so I've done everything. So almost kind of like a startup mentality, like a founder mentality. So kind of like, which has been really brilliant, right? Because I've done pretty much anything from like super junior level to the high level as the function expands. So from that point of view, it's just been like amazing experience to build something like that from the ground up.
And from the company point of view, because you had an established organization, you were kind of like playing startup within that. So how had the whole organization reacted and how do you engage with them?
Yeah, so another good question. So look, Superdrug is a highly matrix, complex stakeholder organization, right? So it's like, and with anything new, then you're going to have people that are going to, there's never been any detractors, right? And we've always been very lucky that we've had like the top down sort of buy-in as well. So, any CEO is going to see retail media as a huge incremental revenue opportunity as well, right? But what you've got to do then is establish new ways of working, new processes, like you need new finance processes, right? And before your team establishes, you're asking people that are doing an existing role to help and chip in, right? They may not know and understand retail media. So you got to go through and explain, I created a retail media 101 deck and I farmed that out to all the different teams, trading teams, finance teams to make sure, try and make sure that as everyone is up to date on the journey as possible. So I suppose in the early days, you're really sort of like begging, borrowing, stealing favors from people, trying to get people on the journey with you. Some people are straight on, straight away. They see the opportunity. Other people that, you need to kind of take them on that journey with you as well. So it's super easy in some areas and can be a bit challenging in other areas, but you make progress. Yeah.
So what would you say are like the basic? Where does it all start? I mean, I guess in your case, it's got extra layer of complexity, being part of a bigger group with a common retail media approach or network already. Like, how did it work for you in terms of like steps?
Yeah. So anything like this, you business case it, right? You kind of got to like, number one, like, should we be a retail media network? Can we be a retail media network, right? So I suppose not everyone can, but we're lucky that we have such size and scale in the UK. We've got like such size and scale with like, the biggest CPGs in the world. We got like L'Oreal, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Coty, Reckitt, so on. We've got all these amazing suppliers that are actually kind of crying out for it. If you go back to what I was saying about PepsiCo looking for that data-driven digital sort of model, all of these guys have that. I'm sure, Christine, your role at Coca-Cola, you've probably got a data-driven digital kind of agenda. And, if you're involved in retail media, you'll be going after the big grocers to do that as well. So it's kind of like business case it. You meet the needs and kind of the requests of the suppliers. They're becoming too frequent not to look at it. Once you start to assess that and say, what the size of the prize is worth it, then you got to go through and then figure out what your tech stack is and kind of like what your team is. And you start to run your RFPs. Who am I going to get in for on site? And so on, right? And then obviously that takes time as well to go through before you can go live.
The tech stack has a lot of different implications to it. So I'm sure that is and it's kind of an ongoing one, no, as well.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, the tech is never ending. I mean, and it's like that, that famous programmatic diagram where you've got like just thousands of different kind of vendors in the space. The retail media tech vendor one is just becoming so cluttered. So it's good. You just really got to be like with that. You've just got to be clear on what your roadmap is, what you want to achieve, entertain and kind of stay up to date on what that new tech is. But like, you just stay clear and focus on what you need first and foremost. Yeah.
So from all the things we have so far discussed, one is like, how do I get favors from people at the beginning and get them to change ways of working and establish new processes, to having established properly a business case and convince people and yourselves, determine whether you need to be retail media. Two, an ever-evolving tech stack. What were the big challenges? Where would you say they were the biggest?
I think the biggest one is, well, number one is patience, right? Yeah. I mean, you probably gathered from me that I'm a kind of quick paced person, right? So you really just have to be patient, right? So things will happen and not everything will happen as you plan it, right? And you've got to be comfortable with ambiguity. You've got to be comfortable with things moving at different paces to what you like. But I kind of guess that would be kind of my biggest kind of like a piece of advice when you go through something like that. Forget about all the other kind of technical stuff as well. I think just kind of like be patient and stick to your plan, I suppose.
Are you patient, Christina? Because I'm definitely not.
I'm quite patient, but I guess my way of coping with stress and everything is just getting more organized and more planned. So I probably I can be patient, but this means I'm also creating like plan B, plan C, just in case.
Oh, I wish I had that type of coping mechanism. My coping mechanisms are not that productive.
They're more fun though. It's okay.
And Paul, what have been the fun parts of building a retail media network? And actually, what do you like about it now?
Yeah. The fun parts was like watching your first campaign go live, and then see that come in and, start to see just a small word sponsored appear on, it's like a small thing, but like it's, takes a long time to get to that one word. Or then to start to kind of like, what I really like about it is that, where it's, I always go back to the Tom Fishburne cartoon, Tom Fishburne, the marketunist.
Oh, yes, I know this one.
Yeah. So he has that famous cartoon where marketers always look for the shiny new thing, right? And then you've got AI, you've got the metaverse, whatever. And this is definitely a shiny new thing and marketers love that. But it's tangible, right? It's tactile. It's bringing real business benefit. It's only going to grow. So I like it for that respect as well. It's where the industry is moving. So I'm really into that because again, looking back at my career, the innovation thread kind of like goes through. So it's something new to build on. And I'm constantly learning as well, right? So, and that is a real fun part about this as well. There's so much innovation in the area. There's so much movement. I also like the retail media community as well. It's starting to be established as well. I mean, we haven't met in person, Daniel, yet, but like, we
will. I'm sure it's coming.
I can't wait. Yeah. But yeah, you've met so many great people as well. And then I go, what I also like about it, I think it's kind of like, it's really helped. It's the first role I've had where it's kind of like the sum of all my previous roles has really helped to build it in, right? So you take my agency experience, client services is obviously a big part of this. So I kind of like managing our CPG clients. Then you've also got like the media planning elements, the creative planning element, kind of like the brand planning element. So there's all those elements that have sort of like kind of like meld or blend perfectly into what a great retail media sort of leader needs to have these days, because you've got sales side, planning side, client services side, all these different things as well. So that's what I enjoy.
Now it all makes sense. The fact that you were doing all these cross-industry, cross-functional movements, they've all come together in this role, no?
It is. It's serendipitous. Yeah. So it's good timing.
Very much, definitely. And the other part that I feel excites me also very much is to see how retail media is helping shape or reinvent a bit the relationships between retailers and brands, because the conversations are also shifting versus what they used to be. And on that front, also, I wonder, like the way that brands come to you, is it only for assuming that retail media is purely for transactional purposes, like lower funnel activation, or would that also be for brand building and upper funnel?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. So what I'm starting to see now is that the more advanced CPGs are starting to with sort of like more full briefs, right? Just before I go into that, I was speaking to the trade desk recently, and they say that 50% of all their briefs coming in on retail media are for CTV. Right. So which is really interesting, right? So that kind of like really kind of upper funnel premium video being activated by retailer data. But yeah, we're working with one CPG at the moment who've given us a full year brief on kind of like, okay, yeah, we've obviously got like our weekly sort of like ROAS and whatever we need to hit, but we've got 6 or 7 other KPIs, which are sort of brand building metrics and kind of like, how are we affecting new to brand? How are we affecting kind of incremental purchase? How are we affecting frequency? So they've given us a really detailed brief over 6 or 7 different products over the full year. And we built a reporting dashboard off the back of that. So now at the end of that 12 months or whenever the reporting period is finished, we'll be able to say, okay, right, so day to day, you drove incremental sales through your sponsored products or social, wherever it is. But also you've moved the needle. You know, you've got like there's one big brand launch you're looking at this year. They want to establish that brand through retail media, which I think is really interesting as well, right? So you've got like all sorts of, and there are more and more of those briefs starting to come through. I would say probably 60, 70, 80% are still that lower funnel, but it's moved that direction for sure.
And what about incrementality you just mentioned? I guess like, does everybody come and expecting to somehow establish a case for their brand that whatever is happening with retail media is incremental? Because I've been in quite a few conversations where everybody's like, what is my incremental sales?
Yeah. I mean, incremental is one of the buzzwords at the moment as well.
Yeah.
And definitely, again, from the more sort of like the more global CPGs are the ones that are definitely look like. So we have like iROAS now, right, to look after. So you've got ROAS and you've got your small incremental ROAS as well. Yeah, but there are ways and means that we start to look at that as well. We A/B test and we have control expose. So we're doing those sort of tests as well to meet the needs. But we also get those requests in from media agencies as well, right? So remember that it's not just the suppliers and brands that we work with. We're now starting to work more closer with the likes of the holdcos, your Mindshares and over in this world. And you can imagine they're all about that as well, right? Because they're kind of like, they're all about that kind of like, high level reporting back into the likes of you or Coca-Cola and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big debate right now also. Well, not now. It's been going on at least for a good couple of years around, the emergence of retail media networks means that every retail media network has their own measurement standards. So there are like some initiatives to create some standardization. What are your 2 cents on that?
I agree that everyone needs to standardize as well, right? So like we're a member of the IAB. So like, we're absolutely kind of like trying to make sure that we're adhering to all of that. I guess some of the challenges you have with standardization really, it's probably a bigger headache for agencies, I would say, more than anything else. So if you think of kind of like a Mindshare booking and campaign, right? So now you've got 6 RMNs to kind of fill in that maybe goes on the shopper marketing plan, right? But the way that each of the retailer maybe calculates traffic or might actually be slightly different potentially as well. So even though the ROAS metric might be the metrics behind that, and even the way that it's calculated, if you've got Criteo versus Citrusat, also might be different. So, like, kind of getting that true kind of like absolute 100% lever is quite difficult as well. So, I think we're probably a few years away from absolute true standardization, but it has to be done. I mean, like, if I was a media planner or if I was kind of on the brand side as well, I definitely want to get a handle on it.
Yes, a lot of people are looking into standardization when it comes to retail media. I think everybody's referring to digital mostly as well. I wonder, how does your offline or in-store kind of proposition comes to kind of like match what you do online, or how are they connected?
Yeah, it's another really good question. So I think maybe by the time this podcast is out, we will have our in-store screen network live.
Okay.
Right. So we're about to launch. So it's super interesting. So the answer is, at the moment, I don't know what I don't know, right? So what we're doing, but I'm listening to the CPGs, I'm listening to the agencies of like, what is it that you want? So like at a base level, you've got like, you know, standard media, we're starting to bring standard media metrics. So OTS or kind of like proof of play and all that sort of stuff. But obviously everybody is looking again for incrementality and sales lift. So we're looking at things that maybe again, like one idea we're knocking around is like, so the idea of control and expose. So you might have 15 stores where your digital screens are running, and then 15 very similar stores where it's not running, and then see kind of is there an uplift as well. But there's also like going back to the sort of like the level of tech that's kind of like emerging and kind of like platforms are emerging. You know, we can have sensors on screens and start to report back on dwell time or kind of like demographics, and then even potentially start to connect that to health and beauty cards. So like, you know, we know that you're in store or stood in front of a screen X amount of time. So we're definitely looking at that as well. And, you know, as that's an area that will ramp up as well quite quickly, I would expect.
And as a former FMCG guy, not of the podcast, but having worked in FMCG, what type of data do you think that you're providing FMCGs that you think is like very valuable or differential?
Well, we have like huge loyalty program. We have a health and beauty card with 20 million people on that loyalty card, which is amazing, right? So like that's sort of like what the brands are looking for. So like I said at the start, they don't have or have limited access to transactional data. And so like the briefs that we get in, for example, like we want to target someone that a lapsed buyer, someone that hasn't shopped in the last 180 days, or a competitor buyer, or someone that we want to trade up. So potentially kind of has previously bought like entry level cleanser, but now you want to go and get that premium cleanser in as well. So they're the audience profiles that the CPGs are absolutely looking for.
And are you getting any clean room requests already? Because that's another buzzword that we've had quite a bit.
Yeah. No, a lot of clean room requests as well. Like, so we aren't quite there on clean rooms. We are trying to assess in that as well. So I think kind of like for retailers, clean rooms and data is a tricky one to navigate. So we just need to kind of like understand that a little bit in more detail. Yeah.
And now you've been doing this role for 18 months. What's your vision for? I mean, I could say 5 years, but probably planning anything 5 years now is very unrealistic. But what's your vision for the next 18 months?
Yeah. So I think kind of just really establish yourselves as a really go-to retail media. I want to be on every media plan, basically, right? So if you want to ask me what my goal is, I want to make sure that I am an unmissable part of a media plan for our key partners, right? And then I want to be shown value on top of that. So that's 100% my goal over the next couple of years.
What do you think would be a good advice now to the FMCG companies who are trying to navigate this world? Like with all the things we've said, what would you tell them?
Or really to be really clear about what you want from it as well, right? You know, so like anything, like the best briefs are the most single-minded, right? So kind of like you won't get everything from every brief, right? You know, we can report on myriad number of things, and you can kind of like, I remember my old boss, PepsiCo used to say, like, the great thing about digital is you can measure everything, but the worst thing about digital is you can measure everything.
You can measure everything, yeah.
So it's very easy to get caught up on that. And we often see that, you know, when we present, because, you know, you've got a digital background, any report that goes back has lots of different digital metrics on it as well, right? So unless you're really clear around that top line, what one are you trying to shift in that particular moment? Everything else is kind of secondary after that, right? So just be kind of clear and focused.
So don't ask, know your objectives and be like specific on what you want, and that it can't be, specific is that it can't be everything, no?
Yeah, because then it's objective after that, right? So if you instruct me to do A and I deliver that, but then you also see, these other things as well. All those things are interesting, and you might have uplift across those other areas. And that's totally interesting to look at. But being single-minded is obviously the best way forward.
And this wouldn't be an FMCG Guys episode without our famous question, which is, Paul, if you went back to the beginning of your very interesting career and you could give yourself one piece of advice with everything that you've learned, what would that be?
Yeah. go for it. Yeah, jump in head first. Whatever you do, an opportunity will come off the back of it if you approach it in the right way. Right, as long as you go in with sort of like, an open mind, your opportunities will start to present themselves. So like, don't be hesitant. Just go in, and you never know where you'll end up.
This was Paul Stafford, head of retail media at Superdrug. Christina, you need to go to Superdrug next time you're in.
I need to. I've written it down. I won't say which store, but he already told me where I need to go, and I plan on visiting.
I've been there, and I think I bought some tweezers for my eyebrows. That was my...
Okay, that's a piece of information perhaps our listeners will not appreciate, but the whole conversation with Paul was excellent.
Yeah, no, and I was very keen to bring Superdrug in because it is a very iconic retailer. It's like a retailer that has like a very different vibe. And as he said, it's very useful. And I think he said 800 stores, it's like a classic of every main high street in the UK. You'll have a Superdrug with their neon-like light. Yeah, it's quite a classic.
And the most different part, like as Paul was mentioning for his career, is that now he's on the side of the data as well, compared to FMCG. So there is a lot of interesting things to unpack when it comes to retail media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting how his career brought him to lead retail media, because he really did, the people that are leading retail media now, since it's a very new space, it's like you have a bit of everything. And he brings kind of everything to the party, which is interesting.
It's fantastic, the fact that these people are very specialized generalists in a way.
Yeah. What else do you think is worth noting from the conversation?
Well, for sure, the kind of steps that they needed to take. I love that, starting with the question, should we be a retail media network? The answer actually came partially from their FMCG counterparts and the expectation that this should be part of the proposition they offer. So this was quite interesting part. And I guess on the tech stack, that's something that's expected. It's always evolving and should continue to do so as ad tech and fintech also kind of come together to support these new propositions. And the other part that for me was kind of the biggest takeaway here is the need for clarity on the brief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I think that... I think that little by little we'll get FMCGs understanding more what they can get and so on. But there's always a thing of people having a vision. Have you ever a clear vision of where you want to go? You probably have more idea of what you want on a brief, no?
Yes, but it's also because it's very new. If you go into an advertising agency and they have they do their media planning and they have their drop-down list, probably retail media is not there yet. And I guess this is where Paul wants to go. So for everything else, when they're choosing something where they go with out-of-home media, for example, or TV, they know exactly how this works and what it is they're trying to achieve and how it fits in their plan. Retail media is still a little bit of a mystery or a gray box, if you want, because we can, as Paul mentioned, we can measure so much stuff. So perhaps we want to, get green numbers on whatever we can measure. While in reality, you need to start with what is it that I'm trying to achieve and then figure out what is the best way to approach the job to be done.
Exactly. Excellent, Christina. Well, thanks for your brilliant takeaways as always. Great to see you again. And I think we have some recordings next week. So I'll see you. And I'll see you soon. And also our listeners will be able to listen to us again every Wednesday and every Saturday. Thanks for tuning in as always. Have a great day and be happy. Bye-bye.